Now, I would like to invite Catherine Zeta-Jones to the stage to
Meet,
present leading actress role
meet,
to the winner at
meet,
the 19th
meet,
Oscar ceremony.
meet.
Oh, mhm. Oh, uh, what's happening? Oh my god. Whew. Oh my god. I guess I was stuck in my last night dream. So sorry, everybody. Welcome to Agile Turkey Summit 2020. Regardless, wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. As you can remember from yesterday, this is Yeet and my partner.
Fatma, hello.
We will be here with you all day.
It's really nice. It's really nice to see you here with us. It. For a moment, I was scared that you won't be able to come back, and I thought I'd be moderating the whole event myself. Hmm, maybe it could have been nice. Let's turn back to Agile Turkey Summit 2020. We appreciate your feedback, which has given sponsors paid access. Today, when you look at the broadcasting website, you will see the red sponsor booth button, which will direct you to the related page. Registration rules are the same. What you need to do is just type your name, surname, valid email address, and create password if you haven't done yet. Finally, we kindly request you to help us about designing an Agile Turkey Summit 2020 collage. So please use hashtag AT Summit 2020 while posting your photos on public social media accounts.
And today, from Australia, the co-founder and the CEO of the Business Agility Institute, Evan Leybourn will be here with us. Hello, Evan. And the stage
It
is
helps that I'm
yours.
not on mute. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say, everybody. How are the two of you going?
Thank you so much. Oh, we hope you are good too. Safe and healthy, of course.
Very much so. I think Melbourne is just now coming out of lockdown, and safe and healthy is the order of the day.
All right, perfect. The stage is yours. You can continue.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to everyone who is attending, wherever you happen to be. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Evan Leybourn. For my sins, I am the co-founder and the CEO of the Business Agility Institute. We are a global research and professional association. We have members in 94 countries. I actually counted them last week. And our mission, our vision is to create a world where companies are customer-centric, filled with engaged and empowered employees and workers, where the people can go to work and have a sense of purpose. Now, that all sounds great, and that sounds like a noble ideal, and many organizations have a long way to go to achieve it. But we're going to dive into one very key area, and we're going to talk about management, and specifically people management. I'm not too fussed about process management, but we're going to talk about what it takes to be a good leader and a good manager. We know that agile organizations, no matter how you define what an agile organization is, we know that management is such an important skill set. Now, I'm going to start by telling a story of a bad manager. I'm going to tell a story of a manager that was not effective, who was, and put on silent, a manager who was not effective, a manager who, if you're familiar with the Peter Principle, was promoted to the level of incompetence. And I'm going to use the one example, I'm going to tell the one story of cannot possibly object, me. So I'm going to take you back in time to about 2008. 2008 was the point in which I first became an executive. Prior to that, I'd run teams, I had run projects, and I've been using Agile since about 2003, thereabouts, so Scrum and all that kind of stuff. But I joined, or more accurately, the Australian Public Service. I was a public servant. And the Australian Public Service gave me an opportunity to come in as an executive director, to be responsible for a whole of government program. Now, this was something I had never done before, but I got the job because I was a subject matter expert. I knew a lot about the field in which we were trying to launch this program. I had run a small business. We had 15 employees at its largest. I was a good communicator. I knew how to convey the challenges and the delivery approaches and all the things that were necessary to get this program across the line. But most of all, I got the job because I was confident, because I thought I could do the job, and that belief in myself carried through in what I said and how I said it, and to the people who ultimately hired me. But as you probably guessed, I was not good at that job. It was a skill set. There was a skill set needed that I had never learnt. It's not enough to be a project manager or a product owner. You need to actually know how to inspire people and change people and drive change in people. And the skills that I had developed were ones that, well, to be honest, weren't enough. Now, I mentioned the Peter principle, and that was me. I had been promoted to my level of incompetence. There was so much that I thought I knew, and the arrogance or the confidence in which I took on that role, and it hurt. And as much as I'd like to say that, hey, this is my story, and it's all good now, the reality is that this same story is being repeated thousands of times a day all around the world. People are being promoted with no skill and no training to be effective in their role. And this is the curse of management. We believe that management is a intrinsic skill. And for some reason, it's only management. We don't look at a doctor or an engineer or a pilot or even like a construction worker and think we can do that job. We know that there is skill. We know that there is training. We know that there is a lifetime of experience that goes into being effective in that role. Right? And yet we look at our boss and our boss's boss, and we think, I can do that job, and I can do it better than them. And probably the sad truth is maybe you can. If they got their job by being promoted to their level of incompetence, then you know what? Maybe you can do a better job. But doing a better job is a far cry from doing a good job. So I want to talk to you about what bad management looks like and what good management looks like, because obviously I'm not going to leave you with just a sad story. So I should be sharing my screen now. So let's talk about the false journey towards management. This idea that anyone can be a manager without skill and without training. The idea that we can, without any awareness of what is required or awareness of what is involved, we are able, and we have the arrogance to assume that we are able to be successful, right? That there are things in our that the skills that took us to where we are today are the skills that are necessary in the future. But if we look at the theme of this conference, unlearn to evolve, right? Those 3 words sitting on top of the slides, right, that you're seeing on every screen. This concept is fundamental, right? The idea that you have all you need to go forward and to be a manager, this is where managers, unfortunately, I think, get a bit of a bad rap. And as much as I like to pick on myself, right, this is a systemic problem. Right? This isn't a people problem. This is not saying managers are bad. Companies share most of the blame. We promote and we hire the wrong people, and worse, we don't give them the skills or the training in order to be successful. There's a statistic from, I think it was Career Builder. 58% of managers do not receive management training when they first got into that role. Right? More than half, 3 out of 5 managers are unskilled, untrained, and, to be blunt, ineffective. So just that for a moment. Right? There's no other function in the organization that you're going to hire someone without training. Right? Even the janitor has some training on the job. Right? And yet managers do not. So what happened? Right? Why is this a problem? So let's look at some of the emergent characteristics. Right? So the characteristics of management that emerge when you don't unlearn, right? When you don't take yourself back to roots and then build yourself up as a manager. The first one is this concept of micromanagement. Now, I think most of you understand what we mean by micromanagement. The idea that I can tell you what to do. And this emerges, and this emerged for me back in 2008, because when you are a subject matter expert, right, and you're in a functional hierarchy, which means the people who report to you have the same skill set as you do. Right? A junior developer reports to a senior developer, who reports to a development lead, who reports to a head of development. Right? By the very nature, you know more than the people who are under you, the people who report to you. Right? Just by the nature of how promotions work, or in fact, usually. Right? So it's very easy. It's very easy to fall into the trap of looking at someone who reports to you, looks up to you, and going, I can do a better job than that. Right? Why can't you do what I can do? Right? And so it's so easy to fall into that trap of going, just telling them what to do, or worse, doing it for them. Right? So these are things that we need to, I suppose, get rid of. These are the patterns and the behaviors that need to be resolved. Another one, right? This concept hustle porn. Now, this is a Silicon Valley culture. Right? It glorifies long working hours. It comes out of the startup scene. The idea, if you're not working 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week, that'd be beautiful. If you're not working 20 hours a day, right, 60, 70 hours a week, then somehow you're not as good as someone who is working more. Right? It looks at it. There's a culture of risk avoidance. Right? The idea that I don't need to make a decision, or more accurately, I'm afraid to make a decision. So I will do whatever I need to do in order to avoid making that decision. And that's where meetings come into play. I'll talk about that in a second. Right? Presenteeism, almost the opposite. It's I have to be seen. If I'm not there in the office being seen by my managers and the people around me, then somehow my value is not known. Right? And again, this behavior is systemic. It's across the entire organization. And one of the last ones, death by meeting, which comes to that risk avoidance as well. The idea that we, as people, as managers, as leaders in an organization, we can delegate we can delegate all responsibility to a meeting, right, to a committee. If we fill our hours, our days with meeting after meeting after meeting, right, then we never get to do any work. But we don't need to, because we feel like we're being effective, right? We feel like we're doing the right thing. And all these anti-patterns and the subconscious avoidance techniques, and the subconscious, we don't deliberately, no one thinks they're a manager. No one's presenteeism is a good thing. No one thinks that a day full of meetings is enough use of time. But we subconsciously are afraid, we feel like we are not effective in the role. We apply these patterns of behavior, right? And when we do, we never actually have to face our own incompetence, because we're never actually put in a situation where our incompetence is visible. But the worst thing, the absolute worst thing that happens is that good managers, right, those managers who are fantastic, who know what it means to be a good manager, maybe even intrinsically, they suffer because they are surrounded by the culture of bad management. And they believe that all these managers around them who have been successful, right, they've got the senior positions, right, they believe that that is the way that you're meant to work. And so they, despite being good managers, they start acting like bad managers, because it's this imposter syndrome. If I don't act this way, I'm not a good manager, when the opposite is unfortunately completely true. So let's talk about what's the impact. Why do we care about this? So some stats. 30% of managers cite failure to coordinate across units as the single greatest challenge to executing their company strategy. And right now, in a world of COVID, of global disruption, coordination across business units is the difference between being able to respond to a global pandemic in days versus being able to respond to a global pandemic in months, right? And we know what's happening to companies who are responding in months, not in days. Coordination is key, and management is key to coordination. What about people? 79% of people who quit their jobs cite lack of appreciation. This is from an OC Tanner survey. So a manager's job is to build up and develop the people who report to them. And key to that is appreciating them. And if you can't do that, then, well, what can you do? 64% of people will trust a robot more than their own manager. They will trust an AI, they'll Google Home. And that's kind of scary when, like, the management and managers have such an important role to play in everything that we do. But the good news is, this is a skill. Management, like any other skill, can be learnt, and it can be practiced, and it can be improved, whether it's through training or mentorship or 1,000 different on-the-job experiences. You, I, and others can, with mindfulness and the willingness to unlearn, right, these bad behaviors, we can become good managers. And it actually doesn't take long either. This isn't something that it's a 5-year honors master's degree necessary to become a manager. Some of these skills, you can learn the basics in a day. It will take you a lifetime to master, right? But they're not overly complicated. Now, these days, as I mentioned at the beginning, I spend my time running a research organization, and we promote the ideas of good management and business agility around the world. So let's look at what the research says good management looks like. So let's talk about some of these characteristics. All right. First of all, let's talk about an agile organization and the structure of an agile organization. I don't have time to go too deep into this, but many agile organizations are moving away from top-down command and control management structures towards leadership and management through influence. Persuasion. So soft skills become more important in management. And that's especially true when organizations restructure. So even though the formality is no longer top down, organizations are also moving away from these functional hierarchies where we now have teams that are cross-functional and multidisciplinary. So as a manager, you may have a team of people who do not share the same skill as you have, right? And that is a beautiful thing, because it's almost impossible to micromanage a team when you don't know, when you're not better than them at their job, right? And this is one of the beautiful things around management, is that because it's a different skill, you can be an amazing manager, right? And at the same time have people who report to you who are in their own right amazing at the skills that they bring to business. Right? So that's what you want to develop. Now, I'll share these slides after so you don't need to read everything that's on here. This was a piece of research that we did late last year on employee engagement. And engagement, and we know there's a strong correlation between engagement and management. It's actually the next slide we'll talk about. I think it's 70-something percent of the score in employee engagement is accounted for by managers. Right? So if we want an engaged workforce, oh, there we go. There's the stats. Right? So if we want an engaged workforce, we need managers who can engage the workforce. So let's look at the characteristics that not so much emerge, but that you need to focus on. What are those characteristics that you want to instill in both yourself and in other managers around you, if you are a coach or someone who's doing transformations? So let's start with one of the obvious ones. The concept of autonomy. Dan Pink talks about it: autonomy, mastery, purpose. And the idea of delegating outcomes, giving people ownership of the work that they do. And that's hard sometimes, because it goes to that I sometimes have to let people do things in a different way than I would do them, and trust, and maybe a little bit of hope, that what they do is either going to be better than I would do, or at least adequate, good. And if not, understand that this is a learning opportunity for people, and they will learn more mistakes they make than by me telling them what to do. And a real example, we have an editorial board in the Institute who looks after all the content and the library and all the material that we publish. And I made a decision not to be the chair of the editorial board. I'm trying to sort of pull myself a little bit back from being the center of everything with the Institute, because it's not Evans Institute. We have a mission. So we elected, or the board elected a chair who'd be responsible for setting the direction and the vision of the board. And the chair immediately took it in a direction that I wasn't expecting, right? And I'll be honest, I was skeptical. The first couple of weeks, I'm there going, what's he doing? No, like this isn't going to work. It doesn't make sense. He's just going to waste time. And we're a volunteer-run organization, so all the editorial board are all volunteers. So I was scared, to be honest, that he would, or actually they, because we actually have co-chairs. I was scared that he and she would take it in a direction that would actually damage I suppose the volunteers. They've donated their time to us, and we have squandered that. But you know what? Right? I trusted him. Right? I'm not his manager in a traditional sense of the word, because they're all volunteers. Right? But I deliberately stepped out and said, I'm going to let you run with this in your way. And you know what? About 4 weeks in, I started to see the benefits. and the strategic value in the direction that they were taking this board, somewhere that I would never have gone, right? And as of right now, they're creating some absolutely amazing things around like personas for HR managers and so forth that are so valuable to us as an organization. And I would never have gone down that path, all because I delegated the outcome, right, to somebody and gave them the space to try. Right? Communicating vision. Right? We need leaders who can share and almost inspire, right, the purpose and the vision of the organization and get people aligned. Strategic agility, doubly important in an era of COVID-19 because strategy is such a vital skill. People development. Now, people development, I don't just mean, do you have the skills necessary for your job? I mean, developing someone to be their full self, helping them develop time management skills and communication skills, helping them develop and grow as a person, helping them grow emotionally and mentally, helping them grow in their skills, but also complementary skills that may have no value today, but combined with something that will happen in the future will have exponential return on investment. So we need managers to look at people development not as a thing you need to do once a quarter or once a year in the worst case, right? But rather this is your job, right? And this is the biggest part of your job, not meetings. And lastly, agile mindset. Now, obviously, I'm talking at Agile Turkey, so I would hope you all understand what we mean when we talk about agile mindset. But just this is such an important concept, it's got to be said. Now, again, a slide with a lot of words. I'm not going to read through these. You can look at them at your own leisure. But one of the tools that I find most effective, and I learned this from Pia Maria Thoren, who wrote the book on Agile People, is this concept of the 16 Basic Desires by Professor Stephen Rees. And it helps when you understand that people's motivations are perhaps different from yours and perhaps vastly different, almost alien to yours. It helps to sort of see people as people and not as the problem with, and we talk about teams in Agile a lot, but the problem with teams is that they are made up of people. And if you have a team of, say, 7 plus or minus 2 people, and those 7 plus or minus 2 all have different intrinsic desires or motivations, it is very hard as a manager to do one thing to motivate the team. You've got to do 7 plus or minus 2 things to motivate the individuals to motivate the team. So understanding that, for me personally, was a huge part of this. There's so many skills that a manager needs, and a good manager, I don't have a lot of time left. I've only got about 10 minutes left. So this is just a start, right? But think about it, and think about if you are a manager or looking to become a manager, think about the skills that you have, and think about the skills that you're missing. Right? Those that I've mentioned and many more besides. And for those of you who coach and help transform organizations, look at them and look at their management. Right? Look at how you managers, giving them the skills they need to be effective in an agile world. So, like we spoke about, what is the impact of good management? Well, we know from our research that there is a 24% increase in employee engagement scores in mature agile organizations. Now, obviously, we know that management leads to employee engagement. That's like 70% was the earliest statistic. So an agile organization, one with agile managers, right, has significantly higher engagement scores. Right? And that carries with it actual quantifiable benefits. 17% higher profitability, 17% higher productivity, 21% higher profitability, 41% lower absenteeism, right? 10% higher customer customer scores, NPS scores, right? And all of these, you can take this to the bank, right? Training your managers to be better managers has a measurable impact on the bottom line, a positive impact on the bottom line of your organization. It is almost impossible to lose money if you are developing the skill of your managers. Now, obviously, you can't develop just your manager, you have to develop the whole organization, right? But it's such a vital capability. In fact, actually, interestingly, it's not in the slides, but people often talk to me about self-management. And in our library, we have, 50 odd articles, case studies, references of self-managing organizations. All right. But here's the magic about self-management. Self-management doesn't mean no managers. Self-management means everybody is a manager. So these management skills are actually more important in self-managing agile organizations than they are, and they're still important for everyone else as well. All right. So these are skills and capabilities that you can't get away from. And if you're listening to this and you are just getting started in your career, right? You're a junior developer, right? Start developing some of these skills today. Right? Because when you are ready to become a manager, a leader, you will be years and years ahead of everybody else who is becoming a manager at the same time, because you've been developing these management skills from the very start of your career. And you know what? If you're towards the end of your career, start now anyway, right? Because you will finish your career at the highest point possible. This is going to be something that is, well, be honest, fun. Right? People will like what you have to say. People will listen to you. You will be a good manager. So let me go back to 2008. Right? So this is arrogant, confident, but incompetent Evan. A good project manager, a good scrum master, a good agilist. I knew Agile pretty well. In fact, this is also the same point in my life when I started developing my own concepts of business agility, because I used Agile concepts to help me become a better manager. But I didn't do that on my own. It took a great manager above me, right, to point out my limitations, to share with me what he saw and the arrogance and the mistakes that I was making. And I'll be honest, it took me a while to understand and to truly listen to what he had to say. But once I did, right, I learned the skills necessary to be a successful manager. And I'll generally put it down to these three characteristics. Confidence. I had confidence. No problem there. Empathy. Now, the thing is, I had empathy. That wasn't the problem. It's one of my skills is I am good at knowing and putting myself in other people's shoes. But competence, I didn't. So I was missing 1/3 of what it requires to be a successful manager. And for everyone here who's listening, think to yourself and your skills. Of those three, what do you need to develop? And how are you going to develop? So today, I'm running a research organization. I'm running a professional association. something I've never trained for in my entire life. It's entirely new to me. And I'm learning what it means to be a leader, a manager, all over again. And I'm loving it. I'm loving every single minute of what I'm creating and the opportunities to make mistakes with my employees and make mistakes with my volunteers, and know that I can be transparent with those mistakes. I can be honest with them that I'm not the perfect manager, and because there is no such thing as a perfect manager, and know that in turn they will help me be a better manager, and I will help them be better at what they are doing. And hopefully, by showing them what this means, for those who are on the path to management themselves, help them for themselves be a better manager. So that's me. That's my story. And I'm not sure if there is time for questions or how questions work, but I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to someone in the other side of the planet talk about how he sucked as a manager. So how do we do questions?
And thank you for magnificent presentation, Evan. And I would like to share our participants' comments, just a comment. Every manager should listen this great presentation and should think about this. And the Q&A session. We have a bunch of questions here for you, and let's start with this one. First question: what is the difference between an agile leader and agile boss?
Okay, so management is a position, it is a role. Leadership is a trait. It is it's something that you are. So a good manager is a good leader, but a good leader doesn't have to be a manager. Right? You can be a community leader, a subject matter like a leader in your domain or your expertise. You can be a leader in any things that don't involve management. But when we talk about business agility, right, we know that management is so vitally important that we really want to focus on the skill of management and less so the trait of leadership, which is still important, but it's there as part of management.
All right, thank you. And here is the second question for you from our participants. What can be the best way to create awareness in a manager about his management style, which is bad and that he needs to unlearn to evolve?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it partly depends on who you are as well. So if you're that person's boss, if you're their manager, right, then it's your responsibility to give them that feedback, right, to show them what good management looks like. Right? If you report to a bad manager, right, then there's bad and then there's really bad. So if you report to a bad manager, then you need to have that conversation about this isn't the style of management that is effective for me. Right? And we need to find ways of collaborating and working together. If you're working with a really bad manager, someone who is almost actively hostile, right, then you need to leave because you're not safe, basically. They will not listen to you. They will not respect you. Nothing you say will change because they don't respect you. And so there's a funny quote: change your organization or change your organization. And so this is the second part of time to move on. Now, if you're a coach, right, and you have and you're coaching managers or you're coaching transformations, and there's a management connection to the transformation that you're doing, then there are a lot of coaching skills that enable people to learn for themselves their own limitations. Right? So you don't need to tell them that they're a bad manager, but you can set it up so that they discover that they're a bad manager for themselves. Now, that's a fairly advanced set of coaching skills. If you are in that lucky position, that's probably one of the best ways that you can actually help people to get better.
Thank you.
And here is the next one. Generally, product owners are the existing managers of the team. Do you believe that they must be the product owners as always?
So that's, I would say that's probably an anti-pattern for Scrum anyway. Product owners aren't necessarily the manager of the team, and in fact, probably shouldn't be. In fact, I'm pretty sure Scrum Guide says they shouldn't be, full stop. That being said, I've not read the new Scrum Guide, so maybe they changed it. I don't know. No, product owners should govern through influence, not authority. Right? And that is a skill that, and it is a management skill, right? Managing through influence and persuasion. So it's a skill, it's a management skill that they need to have. But if your product owners are also your boss, then according to Agile, you're not safe, because the whole point of having a separate Scrum Master and to the product owner is because you need that tension between those two roles, so that the team is safe to actually create and develop something, and they're not. One of the Agile principles. Oh, come on! I should be able to do this from memory. Sustainable pace. Something sustainable pace. That's embarrassing. I should know this off the top of my memory. But if the product owner is your manager, it's almost impossible to keep sustainable pace. Right. So for that question, I think there's a more fundamental issue than the management skill of the product owner.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being with us here today, Evan. And enjoy the summer season in Australia. As far as I know, it's the season time. Have a nice day.
Oh, it's hot. So as a last note to everyone who's listening, thank you very much. Thank you, Mehmet. Thank you, Fatima. I really appreciated the invitation to come and speak. Enjoy the rest of the conference. It is getting late here, so I won't be able to hang around and watch. A very quick call to everyone. We are a volunteer organization. We are a research organization. If you are interested in participating as either being part of some of our research, or even being a volunteer researcher, right? Please get in contact with me over LinkedIn or any other way, and let's see if there's ways in which we can help companies around the world be better as they stand. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.